Welcome dear third year learners into another lesson in the English subject. So today's learning objectives would be providing learners with some glossaries related to each unit theme. What we mean by glossaries is that we are going to provide you with some vocabulary lists that you might need later on while answering your questions or developing some compositions that correspond to the themes of each unit. Second, working on affixation and pronunciation. Affixation meaning prefixes or suffixes. Pronunciation. Building sentences using the grammar review points. Practice on the sentence level and paragraph level. Dialogue completion, fill in the gaps, and the main point of our presentation for today is to how to read a text or to recognize the different types or the typology of the questions you would find in your baccalaureate exam. Finally, situation of communication, how to write any type of this course. So the aim of this presentation or this lesson is to review and revise the different grammatical aspects, morphological aspects and phonological aspects you have already seen in the previous units, from Unit 1, Unit 2 and the first half part of Unit 3. So, before we start, we'd like to give you some pieces of advice in order to help you to cope with exams. So, as you know, exams, they are very hard in the sense that they cause us some negative feelings like anxiety, whether be it before or during or after. So we would like to provide you with some recommendations in order to help you ease this psychological situation or state that you would be in. So, or to take a pause while preparing for your exams. So, here you have pieces of advice that you need to use while or before or after you perform an exam. So, before we start, this is a specific learning objectives for today's lesson. It's a revision of important grammatical, morphological and phonological aspects in Unit 1, Ill-gotten gains never prosper. Do you remember the first unit, Unit 1, Ill-gotten gains never prosper? And the theme, do you remember the theme? No? We'll come back to it later. So let's take a look at the title. Unit 1, Ill-gotten gains never prosper. What do we mean by ill-gotten gains? We have ill-gotten gains. We mean by ill-gotten gains is whatever profit or thing you have done or gained or obtained via unethical or illegal methods or practices. And when you gain something that's in a bad way, through a bad or unethical or illegal way, it will never provide you with a good thing. It will never prosper. It will never develop. It will never flourish. You will gain nothing from it, because the more you gain something in a bad way, the more it will be bad for you. You will not flourish, whether be it in your life or your business. So it brings us to the theme of the unit. So we'll come back later to it. And the second objective is writing a newspaper article. So before we start, I'd like to refresh your memories with some glossaries for the Unit 1, Ill-gotten gains never prosper. So these are just samples of the glossary for Unit 1, Ill-gotten gains never prosper. again. So before we start, I'd like to refresh your memories on the about the different vocabularies we have in this unit, or the theme of this unit. So before you have a picture. What do we see, or what do you see in this picture? We have two men sitting by a table, shaking hands on the table, and under the table they are doing something. So it brings us to the question. The first question: what are these two men doing? What are they doing? What do you see? What are they having in their hands? What do you see? They are giving each other some money. When you give each other some money under the table, what do we usually call this? We call it a bribe. So these two men are giving bribe to each other. They are bribing each other. So, and why is it under the table? Why this bribe is being acted under the table? Because it is dishonest, illegal, and unethical. So the act of bribing or bribery is dishonest, illegal, and unethical. So I repeat, why is it under table payment? Why is it under the table? Why are they paying each other money under the table? Is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it an honest thing to give someone money under the table so that no one could see them? Why? Yes, because it is dishonest, illegal, and unethical to do this, to give money under the table for someone. We call it a bribe. Why is it a bribe? Because it is dishonest, illegal, and unethical, and it is an under the table payment. So I would like to ask you a personal question. So we all are human beings. We all have our aspirations. We all like to obtain the things that we like. We like to obtain the things that we like in an easier way if we had the chance. So what would you do if someone, for example, gave you a bribe so that you accept doing something bad for him in order, for example, to enter the university without even doing the baccalaureate exam? What would you do? Would you accept it? Would you omit those codes of ethics you have learned and accept this bribery? What would you do? Well, I would not accept a bribery, never. Whatever or however the price would be, even if this person is telling you if you accept the bribery you will get into places that you have never dreamed of. But we must not accept a bribery because it is against our codes of ethics. It is an unethical practice. Our society works, or it is managed by codes of ethics. And if we deny and violate these codes of ethics, how will our society prosper? It will not prosper. It will not flourish. We will stay in the bottom of the list. We would stay the last people in the planet Earth. We would never flourish. We would never be the nation that we would like to be. So we move to another introductory task, which is matching. So read the following definitions and rewrite them, changing the pictures into words. Use the following list of words to help you. So the words are child labor, whistleblowing, embezzlement, nepotism, bribery, and counterfeiting. So in the next page you have number or a group of sentences, and these sentences are definitions, and beside each definition you have a picture. And these pictures, they signify the words that correspond to the definition. So you have to look at the pictures and the words from the list, and you match them together in order to give the definition its right word. So please pay careful attention, read the definitions and try to give them their right words. So I will help you. I will read the sentences for you. So sentence A: an illegal payment to persuade someone to do something. So in the picture beside it you have two men and they are giving each other something. So what word is appropriate to the picture and the definition? Think about it. It's something similar. We have already seen it. And sentence B: the unauthorized duplication or duplication of any object, especially money, with the intent to defraud, to cheat someone. And the picture beside it you have two bills. These are bills of money, and you have a right mark and a cross mark. So what do you think is the word appropriate to both the picture and the definition? C: the practice of giving important political or business positions to members of one's family. And beside it you have a picture. We have 4 people, and we see 3 people closing their eyes, and only the third person here in the middle has opened eyes and very happy because he was selected. Why was he selected, and why these were not selected? Why? So what word is appropriate to both the picture and the definition? D: revealing confidential information to the police or to a newspaper that your company, for example, is breaking health and safety regulations. So let's suppose or propose a example. So for example, you walked by a shop, and this shop sells shoes, and this shop has its own little factory of shoes, and you saw some children working in this little factory, and you saw that their clothes are dirty, their faces are dirty, and they are using some heavy materials, and they are kids, and they are being harmed by these materials. What would you do? Would you tell someone? Would you tell your friend? Or would you tell the authorities? What would you do? Or would you stay quiet? So what picture, or a word that is appropriate to this picture here and the definition? So sentence E, we have a picture. So we started with the picture, meaning we should start with the word that is missing or corresponds to this picture. Would never occurred if there has not been a violation of the codes of ethics in business. It can be referred to as the unlawful taking of something from another that has been entrusted to you, such as the bank teller pocketing deposits. So which word that corresponds to the picture and the definition? Next, F: employment and exploitation of children under hazardous conditions. And you have the picture of 2 little children, a boy and a girl, are carrying big rocks. So employment and exploitation of children under hazardous conditions. What do we mean by hazardous conditions? We mean dangerous conditions. And what do you think a hazardous or a dangerous conditions would be for a child? What do you think? Yes? For example, you would find them like these two little children carrying heavy stuff, heavy materials, working in places or being in places that is not theirs, they should not be in, and etc. So I would give you the time to match the words with their appropriate picture and definition. So we have the words, the sentences, and you do your task. Have you finished? Yes? So let's take a look. So let's take a look at the key or the answer. So A, an illegal payment to persuade someone to do something is a bribery or a bribe. The payment under the table, a sweetener, a coffee, qahwa, like we say in our culture, to give someone a something, whether be it a money or a service, in order to this someone do something for you. B, the unauthorized publication of any object, especially money, with the intent to defraud, cheat someone. So this is counterfeiting. C, the practice of giving important political or business positions to members of one's family is nepotism. To exploit one's job in order to give special services for his own family. D, revealing confidential information to the police or to a newspaper that your company, for example, is breaking health and safety regulations. We call this whistle blowing, or a person who does this is a whistle blower. A whistleblower is a person who sees, for example, working in a company and sees that the company is doing something unethical, illegal, that harms people, whether be it the company's employees or its customers. This person decides to announce denounce their unethical behaviors or practices to the authorities, and the authorities, we mean the police or the government officials. E, embezzlement would have never occurred if there has not been a violation in the codes of ethics in business. It can be referred to as the unlawful taking of something from another that has been entrusted to you, such as the bank teller pocketing deposits. So embezzlement. For example, let's suppose that you have a bank. Would it be nice to have a bank? And people come and put their money in the bank. And since you are not an honest person, you would steal the money of these people and take it as your own. So we call this a embezzlement. So next, employment and exploitation of children under hazardous conditions, we call it child labor. We have employment, means to employ, to give someone a job, and in this case we're giving children job, but these children are working are under hazardous conditions. We call this child labor. So after having introduced some topical items related to the theme of ethics of business, Unit 1, ill-gotten gains never prosper, we are going to introduce you into some kind of a form of a mock back exam. So since you are a third class of maths and technical math, we have provided you with a text that is both accessible and understandable, so anyone can understand this text. So I'm going to read the text. So as you can see, in a mock exam, in a back exam, you have two parts. Part 1, you have section A, comprehension. So what do you mean by comprehension? So you read, in comprehension section you have questions that are about the text. These questions are going to test your understanding level of the text. So we shall see the types of questions that you would find. So let's first read the text. So they are everywhere, but invisible, toiling as domestic servants in homes, laboring in workshops, hidden from view in plantations. 1 in 6 children in the world aged 5 to 14 is engaged in child labor. So far, have you guessed the topic of the text? No? Millions of children are engaged in hazardous situations or conditions, such as working in mines, working with chemicals and pesticides in agriculture, or working with dangerous machinery. The worst forms of child labor include those that harm the health, safety, or morals of children. So I repeat my question. Having read the first part of the paragraph, have you guessed the topic of the text? No? So how would you guess the topic of the text? Is through key words, or skimming the text. So as you can see here, we have two words that are repeated multiple times. We have child and labor. Child labor is repeated or talked about in the whole paragraph. So the key word here, the most important keyword here is child labor. So the text is about child labor. So let's continue. Child labor drains a childhood of joy and crushes the right to normal physical and mental development, and often interferes with children's education. Working children are more at risk of illness and injury on the job than adults because they are less mature and less aware of dangers. Working children do not have the same opportunities for rest and recreation and often receive less education than non-working children do. So I suppose after this one reading, one skimming, you would have already grasped the main idea of the text, which is about child labor. Now you can read the text a second time in order to understand more what is the text about. Is it speaking about the reasons of child labor? Is it speaking about the effects of child labor? Is it giving solutions? Is it analyzing or defining what is child labor? For that, you have to read the text carefully. So let's move on to the questions. So normally, or the most famous question or typology of question is the type of the text. So, or the type of discourse. As you can see here, you would find this question. Choose the right answer. The text is A, argumentative, descriptive, expository. So as you can see, this is a multiple choice question. So what do you do in multiple choice question of this nature? So you understand that the question is asking you to identify the type of the text. So in order to identify the type of the text, you should have already dealt with the types of the text. Each text has its own characteristics. So this depends on your understanding first of the text, and second on your understanding of the characteristics of the types of text. Because if you don't understand the characteristics of a type of a text, you would not be able to identify the type of the text or the type of discourse. So I repeat, choose the right answer. The text is argumentative, descriptive, or expository. So our text here is expository. Why is it expository? First, it exposes a phenomenon. And what is this phenomenon? It is the phenomenon of child labor. It is defining it, it's explaining what is child labor in a simple words, and it is telling us the causes of child labor and the effects, the most important effects of child labor, and the effects of child labor that affect children, of course. Yes, and most importantly is the use of the present simple. As you can see, most of the whole text is in the present simple. Why? Because we are in the process of explaining a phenomenon that exists in the present. We are trying to analyze it, given its causes and effects, and in hopes of giving a solution. So this is a problem-solving situation. So let's continue. So the text is expository. The second question, so usually after the first question of what is the type of the text, or from where did you find this text, is it an article, a newspaper article, etc., the second most known question is the true or false. So true or false questions, they demand a type of scanning of the text for specific information or for specific details. So what I advise you to do is, you have of course to have read the text at least twice in order to understand the text. Then go back to the sentences or the statements that you are going to judge as true or false, and try to go back to the text and see if they are true or false. So let's read the statements. Children work in healthy and safe conditions. So children work in healthy and safe conditions. So let's go back to the text and see if it is true or false. So remember, children work in safe conditions. So you would find the answer in paragraph 1. Millions of children are engaged in hazardous situations or conditions, such as working in mines. So hazardous and safe, they are opposites. So the statement is false. So children work in healthy and safe conditions is false. They don't work in healthy and safe conditions. They work in hazardous conditions. Child labor endangers every aspect of a child's life. Let's go back to the text. You would find the answer in, again, the first paragraph. Child or child labor drains a childhood of joy and crushes the right to normal physical and mental development, and often interferes with children's education. Physical, mental development and education are aspects of a child's life, and as you can see, the child labor is draining them. They are crushing their rights. So we would say that statement B is true. So statement A is false and statement B is true. Yes, child labor is endangering every aspect of a child's life. C, it preserves the rights of working children. What do we mean by it? Who are we talking about? We are talking about child labor. Is child labor preserving the rights of working children? Is it preserving the rights of working children? Normally, since sentence B or statement B is correct, sentence C would not be correct, because if child labor is endangering every aspect of a child's life, it does not preserve the rights of working children. So even so, we must go back to the text. Again, the worst forms of child labor include those that harm the health, safety, or morals of children. Child labor drains a childhood of joy and crushes the right to normal physical and mental development, and often interferes with children's education. So the answer is in here. Crushes the right to normal physical and mental development and education. So child labor does not preserve the rights of working children. So it means it is false. So let's take a look at the answer. So A is false, B is true, and C is false. So the third question. Answer the following questions according to the text. So this type of question, it demands or it requires a thorough reading of the text. Even though you seem to understand the text for you, but you have to go back to the text and read it more. This is a matter of scanning. It's not the it's looking for details. It's not like the question of true or false. This is a more of a detailed process. So it's looking for comprehension. So A, what do you think the writer means when saying they are everywhere but invisible? So this is one of the questions that you might find that the question is requiring you to infer what the writer is saying. What does the writer mean when saying this? Why he is saying this? What does he mean in this context? So in this first question, you are going to read between the lines. You are going to make some inferences. What does the writer mean when saying they are everywhere but invisible? So this depends on your understanding. So I repeat, the first questions requires a detailed comprehension, so you can answer this question in your own words, but you have to relate it to the topic of the text, because this question requires you to read what's between the lines. So question B, list 3 things that a child laborer has less time for because of his or her work. Child laborer means a child that is working. So this type of question requires you to list the things in the certain items that you find in the text, not anywhere else. So you pick out these 3 things from the text. If the question asks you to list 3 things, you list 3 things. If it asks you to list 2 things, you list 2 things. Nothing more and nothing less. And when answering this question, it's preferable to write it in your own words, but again, you relate it to the text so that you can have a variety in your answers. So the last question, C, why are working children more likable to to sustain injuries and sickness more than the adults in workplace. So this type of question requires a sort of synthesis. So I repeat, this question is about synthesis and requires critical thinking. So you can answer this question in your own words, but always relate your answer to the text. Because if you synthesize and criticize, but not offering an answer that is related to the text, it's irrelevant. It does not matter even if your answer is correct. It's not correct in this context. So please pay careful attention when answering in your own words. So let's take a look at the answers. So first question, it's you answer it according to your understanding. So this is a sort of a sample answer so that you can revise on it. First, I think the writer saying they are everywhere but invisible means that the reality of working children is real and exists all around the world, but no one is seeing them or claiming their rights. No one is responsible enough to try and stop this unethical behavior. B. The three things that a child laborer has less time for because of his or her work are their physical development, their mental development, and finally their education. C. Working children are more liable to sustain injuries and sickness more than the adults in workplace because they are less mature and less aware of dangers around them. So the next question is the most famous one of them. You will practically always find this type of question in your, whether be it in your national exams or your school exams. So for what or who do the underlined words refer to in the text? So this question means that we are going to work out performs. So as you can see, you have two words, those and they, and you need to find out what or who do they refer to, of course, in the text. And you will always find a little help here. So you'd find the word that those refer to in paragraph 1, and they, you would find the word that it refers to in paragraph number 2. So remember, when answering this type of questions, you always have to look at what comes before this word. It's not always a word, it can be an expression. So let's take a look. So let's take a look at the text. So in paragraph 1, we have those. So in order to find what or who does those refer to, we need to look at what's before it. So what's before it is the beginning of a sentence. So let's read the beginning of the sentence. The worst forms of child labor include those that harm the health, safety, or morals of children. So logically, what those refer to comes before it, not after it. So let's read what's before it. The worst forms of child labor include those that harm the health, safety, morals of children. So the author in this sentence is giving us examples of the worst forms of child labor. So those here, it does not refer to these examples. It refers to the forms or the worst forms of child labor itself. It refers to the idea. It refers to the worst forms of child labor, or the worst forms. So they, it's in paragraph 2. So again, with those, we in order to find what they refer to, we must look at what's before it. So what's before they is a whole sentence. So let's take a look at the sentence. Working children are more at risk of illness and injury on the job than adults. So this sentence is speaking about whom? It's speaking about working children, saying that they are more at risk of illness and injury on the job than the adults. Because, so when we see because here, it means that what's after it is a cause. So we are going to see, or the author is going to provide a cause to why children are more at risk of illness and injury on the job than adults. Because they are less mature and less aware of dangers. So in this sentence, who is less mature and less aware of dangers? Is it the adults or the working children? No, it's not the adults, it's working children. The children are here that are working. They are the subject. It's we refer to it as they to avoid repetition. We cannot say working children are more at risk of illness and injury on the job than adults, because working children are less mature and less aware of danger. So in order to avoid repetition, we replace it with a personal pronoun, which is they. So they refers to working children. So let's take a look at the answer. So those refer to the worst form of child labor. They refers to working children. So part B. So we have finished with part A, or section A, which is about comprehension. Part B is text exploration. So what do we mean by text exploration? We mean text exploration, we are going to explore the language of the text. We are going to examine the language of the text deeply. So the first question here, the first two questions that you would find in text exploration is about synonyms and antonyms or opposites. First question, find in the text words closest in meaning to the following. So we have two words, A, work, so we find its synonym in paragraph 1. B, clears out, you find its synonym in paragraph 1. 2, find in the text words opposite in meaning to the following. A, visible, and you find its antonym in paragraph 1. And safe, you find its antonym in paragraph 1. So let's take a look at the answers. So the synonym of work is laboring or toiling. I repeat, work is synonymous to laboring or toiling. Clears out, drains. The antonym or the opposite of visible is hidden or invisible. Safe, its antonym is hazardous and dangerous. So in this case, where you find that the word has more than one synonym or more than one antonym, just write one, and that is enough. There's no need to write more than two. What's important is that it is the right answer. So let's take a look at the other question. Complete the following chart. So in this type of question, we are going to work on the level of morphology, and more specifically on derivatives. So as you can see, you have a chart, 3 columns, verb, noun, and adjective, and you have examples of words. For example, you have the first line, education, noun education, you are required to derive its noun, its verb, and its adjective. The adjective invisible, you are required to derive its noun and its verb, and the verb to engage, you are required to derive its noun and its adjective. How do we usually form words in English? We usually form them using affixation, meaning suffixes or prefixes. So please, you can feel free to pause the video and try to answer the task on your own. So finished? Let's take a look. So verb to educate is the verb of noun education. The adjective, we have provided you with multiple possibilities. For example, we have educational, educative, educating. Why do we have all these possibilities? Is because of suffixes. Verb to invisibilize, noun invisibility, and adjective invisible. Verb to engage, noun engagement, adjective, we have provided you with the multiple possibilities. We have engaged, engaging, and engageable. So let's take a look at some lists of suffixes. We have provided you with again with the lists of suffixes in order to help you later on with this type of activity. So we have some types of suffixes. We have the noun forming suffixes, the verb forming suffixes, the adverb forming suffixes, and finally the adjective forming suffixes. You read them carefully. You take down some notes because you will be needing them in your exams. Because even if you don't have the vocabulary basin in English, these suffixes will help you in your